O pitiful shadow bound in darkness, looking down upon people and causing them pain. A soul drowned in sinful karma, care to give death a try. This was the saying in a particular anime that I love. It's called Jigoku Shoujo, or Hell Girl in English. And it's relevant, only in the fact that it's something to do with hell. Is the Japanese version of hell much different than the way that our Western idea of it is? Yeah, I'd say so. But anyway, I'm not an expert on the subject of Buddhist hell and the concepts that they go through, but there are some similarities and things that we can point out, especially after watching various media, such as today's movie in the 100 Horror Movies in 92 Days challenge, directed by Nobuo Nakagawa. This is Jigoku from 1960, a much older film. A big thank you to Dominic. He lent me this movie today. Just came right on over and was like, hey, you should watch this. I saw you were doing a challenge. So, thank you, Dom. I had a great time with this one. It was very interesting to see how they portrayed hell in one of the, I wouldn't say first horror movies, but the director, Nobuo Nakagawa, was credited as being like the father of horror. And looking up some of the information, apparently this was one of the first horror movies to feature on-screen gore. It wasn't like great gore, but there was some innovative thought behind it. There was spoilers, by the way, for anyone that is interested in watching this movie. I would suggest watching it through Criterion. Dom brought over his DVD of the Criterion collection, and it had this, plus some of the trailer stuff, and posters, just some really good things on that disc. And it was really good quality, very well translated from what I could tell. But the effects and stuff, it's not particularly scary. So if you're a bit of a chicken with horror movies, you might be okay with it. There are some like existential dread themes in this movie, and then there's like I said, a little bit of gore. There's a particular scene in where it depicts the sinners in the movie being punished for the things that they did. There's the doctor who is guilty of malpractice on so many of his people. His punishment was to be sawn in half and have like the saw cut all his body parts apart. But the way they did it, it was very innovative. It was interesting. They spliced two things of footage together, so the back plate had a close-up of a saw going left and right, and like descending very slowly as it goes left and right. And then whenever it hit the figure in the foreground plate, where it would look like it would hit his torso, then the actor would, make the motions of pain, and then he would cry out and all that. And then, there's like the lake of blood and the lake of waste and sins and all that stuff. There's this area, you could see it here in the trailer footage that keeps looping. There's like a field of glass spikes. So there's like a real quick scene where Shiro, the main character, steps while he's looking for his baby, and there's like a close-up of his foot with this large spike of glass sticking through the middle of it. That one was probably like the worst one out of all of it. So if you're squeamish about these things, just be warned that once you get to like the latter end of the movie, when they're in hell and they're actually punishing these people, there might be something there that you're not really, happy about. But for the most part, this movie was more interesting than scary. From a cultural perspective, it's really cool to see how 1960s Japan, and this director in particular, viewed how hell could be portrayed. To my knowledge, it's a very different concept than our traditional ideas of hell, where you just go down there and then it's just eternal torment. The way this is framed and the way that they talk about it in this movie is more akin to Dante's Inferno, where there are different levels based on the sins that you do and different punishments that are doled out by the demons that are down there, the Oni. So it's really cool seeing that part. And in the first part, there's a lot of things that I thought was funny, and it's not meant to be funny, but that's mostly because, you know, it's 2021, and I'm just some yahoo that likes horror movies, so I don't take things very seriously. And to me, like, it's hard to watch like an older movie because I just find so much things funny. But the level of earnest, genuine thought behind the movie and like the characters and things, it's very good. I'm gonna give it that credit. So the plot line is this guy Shiro is constantly haunted by this dude named Tamura, and I guess Tamura is a real person, but he just sometimes pops up out of nowhere as if he's a supernatural being, and he knows everything about everyone, and he knows everything that's specifically bad about someone. Like, if he wanted to blackmail you, he probably could very easily. He knew the sins of Shiro's father-in-law, future father-in-law, and he knows what, like, his father did and what his mother did, and all the people that are in this other area. And I don't quite understand what they were going for with Tamura. From a Western point of view, Tamura was a devil. He was like Satan incarnate, and he's come to torment this man and make his life a living hell, so that there's two different versions of hell. There's the one that's living, where it's all constant misery, and then there's hell, where it's physical misery and physical pain. But the weird thing about that is that in the latter part, in hell, Shiro actually has a reason to exist. He finds out that his wife his fiance had a baby in her before she died, and in hell she's like, my baby's down there, she's in the river, and you have to go and save her, like, give her a good life, do what you can. And it gives him like hope, it gives him a drive, it gives him meaning. And in the first part of the movie, he's just sort of living, and then people start dying. So he's living, and then he's realizing that everything around him just sucks, and he's living miserably, and he's just going through the motions of life that, you know, you kind of do whenever you're in such a deep depression. I mean, his fiance dies in an accident, and he accidentally kills a guy, and he goes to live with his mom, who dies, and the people that lived with his mom in this, like, old people village is kind of like a retirement home, but more like a village that's owned by this corrupt dude, which happens to be his father. Everyone there is, like, corrupt, or they're old, and they're being mistreated, and then people are dying left and right there. Everyone gets poisoned. It's just a miserable situation, and he's just going through it like, yeah, okay. Living sucks, according to this movie. So I think as far as like the story goes, there's a lot to this, and me being the person that enjoys character studies and empathizing with characters, I liked quite a bit of this. I thought the devil character was very entertaining. He was annoying in the fact that you don't quite know what exactly he was or what his point was, other than just to be a dick. There's some very distinct characters out there. There's this promiscuous woman that keeps coming in and out of the scene, and she's like chewing up the scene whenever she comes in, and she's like, "Oh, I love you, Shiro," and you gotta take me to Tokyo with you, and she's just like happy and overly joyous, and she's promiscuous, and she was more like a succubus of some sort, but she was still a person. She was just weird. It was a weird movie, okay? I don't know how else to describe it. I think this is a pretty good recommendation. I'm going to say that if you do watch it, keep in mind that this should be viewed as more of like an art movie. This shouldn't be viewed as like, I'm gonna watch The Conjuring and get myself spooked, or like Freddy vs. Jason, I want to laugh at something like people dying and things. This is not meant to be one of those. Even as weird and campy as it is sometimes, this is meant to be a serious film. Way more serious than Hausu, Hausu, which is, I think, the 1970s. It was another Japanese horror film, but it was very campy, and the effects are kind of weird. But this one is much more serious in content. I understand why it's in the Criterion Collection, but I would also understand why people would not like this movie. So, take it with a grain of salt. I recommend it. Like I said there, come for the misery, stay for the hell. The hell part is really entertaining, but there's a lot to take in from the first part. I like a lot of this movie, like thinking through out loud. It's not very scary, but there are some gory elements. Again, it's like it's credited as the first horror movie in Japan to feature on-screen gore. So, enjoy. I think you can get this from Criterion Channel. Otherwise, you may have to try and track down a DVD of it somewhere. But yeah, that's Jigoku. We'll see you on horror movie number 3.